All right, welcome back, people. This is Ton with Wonton Wealth. Today I have Crystal, who's going to be talking about another asset class that not a lot of people know about. I think it's getting more popularity. It's called residential assisted living, something that I was involved with in the past. This was pre-COVID era, and with COVID happening, it kind of took a back seat for a while, and it's been on hiatus ever since. So, Crystal, welcome. Could you please give us a background of who you are, what you're doing, and what you're doing now as it relates to assisted living?
Yes, I can. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Okay, so I am a nurse practitioner by trade, and so I have, cared for people my whole life. And it turned out that my granny needed care, and my dad was an only child, passed away really young, and so as the oldest granddaughter, I took care of her. But she lived in Virginia, so it was really hard, back and forth, back and forth. And finally, it got to the point that she needed like more care than what we were able to do just on that kind of back and forth schedule. So I brought her here. I quit my job and became her full time caregiver. During that time, I looked in the area to try to find a memory care home for her because she did have some memory care issues, and I could not find anything that really felt comfortable. So I decided to keep researching, and what I found was residential assisted living, and I was like, wow, this is it. Like, this is something that cares for people. It's on a smaller scale. I would feel comfortable leaving my loved one in something like this. So my business partner and I started looking in this area. We could not find any homes in this area that are really good to convert because you really need a ranch home, no basement, obviously no stairs, things like that. So we decided to custom build two 16-bed homes for seniors, and the reason we do 16 beds is because that still gives it that home-like feel. We can have really good caregiver ratios, but it's not too big, and yeah, you can make decent money.
Got it, got it. So let's backtrack a little bit. Within care for the elderly, there are different classifications. There's IL, which is independent living, then there's AL, which is assisted living, and then there's MC, which is memory care. Could you go through what the differences are with those three classifications?
Yes. So when you are doing independent living, think of like the patio homes and the little condos and things like that. So you have your own space, you've got your own kitchen, you've got your own car usually, and you're coming and going and doing your thing. There's a lot of group activities and things like that, so you can hang out with your peers and just enjoy your retirement, your life. When you start to need a little bit more help with activities of daily living, which 70% of seniors will need some kind of help at some point with those, then you start getting into what's called assisted living. So in assisted living, you might just have people who are helping you make your food, helping you take your medications, helping you bathe, helping you walk, helping you dress, just the things that you normally do every day. You just need a little bit of help. But then sometimes what happens is you get to a point where you need memory care problems, meaning you're not remembering who your loved ones are, who you are, what's safe, what's not safe. Definitely not taking your medications, not feeding yourself properly, not grooming properly. So that's when you go into memory care. So it's just the home that we're creating is assisted living, but also memory care because we wanted people to be able to age in place. We did not want them to have to move because once people do have memory issues, it's really detrimental when they go from environment to environment.
So it's essentially a leveling system where level one is independent living, where you can take care of yourself independently. And as your aging progresses, you need a little bit more help where assisted living and then memory care comes into place. So there are, from what I understand, a lot of products out there that help seniors age in place, right? And they are big institutions, apartment like senior communities, etc. What makes residential assisted living different from those products?
So it's really about the caregiver ratio. So a lot of times what people do not understand is that when they go and see those beautiful places, and there are, a lot of them are beautiful, but when you ask like who's actually taking care of your loved one, you get different answers depending on who you ask. And so in our model, it's actually 1 to 6 during the day. In some of the bigger models, it's 1 to 12, 1 to 15, 1 to 20. And having taken care of somebody that needs care, I can tell you that just doesn't work. Like, you cannot physically do that. So that's one of the huge things that's different. The other thing for us is that we really will love on our staff because we understand that if our staff if we love on them, they will love on the seniors. And so they literally will be sitting down and eating meals with them and doing, their chores with them. The idea is like it's a family environment versus an institution. Sometimes people don't realize that even at 60 feet to go down a hallway is too far. Like the senior's not going to remember how to get there. They're not going to be able to physically make it that far. And they just, all they see is the beautiful chandeliers and all of these activity rooms. And look at this is great. And that's great. But the senior's never going to leave their room because they are afraid they'll never make it back.
Right. And I remember back when I was doing my research on residential assisted living, a lot of these facilities or current offerings for seniors were like it gave an institutional feel. It looked like you were in an apartment or in like a hospital feel that you're essentially putting your loved ones who are older in something like a hospital long term. You walk around and everything just seems stale, it's cold, it's shitty, all of the
So
above,
sad.
right? And yeah, and a lot of times for the population or for that specific area, they are multi-level floors.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine a big hospital, right? Or imagine a apartment building that is specifically for seniors. You have elevators. You have to be ADA compliant, right? Whereas when I was doing the residential assisted living project or anticipating or contemplating it, everything was on one level.
Right.
And so that pretty much eradicates the need for any type of elevators, and every resident are on the same floor, right? Is that what your project is doing as well?
Yes, so we have 16 private bathrooms, and everything has been built for seniors. So all of the sinks are ADA compliant, so if they get to the point that they're in a wheelchair, they will be able to roll under. All of the showers are zero entry, so there is no lip at all. There's no transitions between floors, so the kitchen floor will be the same transition as the living room floor, etc. We're not going to have rugs and things like that because all of those things are trip hazards. So we do have things like grab bars and things that help people maneuver in the hallways. They're beautiful, but there will be railings and there will be things like that that are a little different than what you would see in a home. But otherwise, all the furniture, the windows, we're going to have a secured courtyard, so an outdoor space that has raised gardens, because the whole point is that we take our seniors a lot of times and we put them in a chair. And I remember my granny saying this, like, I don't want to go to so and so. I don't want to go there because they're going to put me in a chair. And I was like, what do you mean put you in a chair? Well, so we ended up they had a party for me. I dropped her off when my mom and she walked in. I went and parked the car. I came in and they had put her in a chair in a different room than where everybody else was, because it's kind of like, we'll sit there and we'll come to you when it's good for us. And the problem is when you take somebody's purpose away and you take away, what they don't want to get up anymore. They get depressed. They get, of course, all of these issues. So that is something we are definitely teaching our staff. Teepa Snow does an amazing job on positive approach to care. And it's all about having purpose. It's all about not focusing on what you can't do, but what can you do? Most people, and it's a lot of times women that tend to live longer and are in these assisted livings, they have folded laundry their whole life. So we will give them some of the napkins and some of the things to fold because that's what they've always done. There'll be a little mailbox so they can go and get mail. Like, it just, as much as you can give them a reason and that they feel like they're helping and being productive, the better. So
Love that. Love that. So with this particular project or residential assisted living in general, it's not necessarily just a real estate play. Real estate is practically a small portion of it. I'd say maybe a third of it. Whereas the business side of it is the majority, right? So, sometimes you can, in certain jurisdictions, you can convert a home into getting your 16 beds or whatever the municipality allows for. In Ohio here, I think the zoning allows for 16 in a residential area, but you have to get variances, etc. Or you can build a custom home yourself. So that's the real estate play. But then again, now you have a business aspect on top of that where you have to hire the STNAs or caregivers around the clock. Your real estate has to be, compliant with ADA, zoning laws, etc., right? So, can you talk us through some of the challenges first of the real estate that you're facing when it comes to buying the land, getting the zoning or the variances or any code compliance that you've ran into?
Yes. Okay. So I've learned so much about this. We found the land and we had the zoning changed. It was originally business park, and we had it zoned to community commercial because assisted livings are allowed in community commercial. So it's fascinating because while assisted living is considered an R4, so a residential, if you go over 16, it becomes institutional. And that is significantly more money. So we are going to have our home sprinkled. There's all those safety features will be in there anyway, but some of that industrial stuff is way beyond what we actually need. So that was for us, honestly, not a challenge. I mean, it is a hurdle. It takes some time, but the Kenton County PDS was incredible working with us, and Fort Mitchell has been incredible. They understand the need. It was actually in their 2030 plan to expand senior housing. So when we went to ask for this, it was not an issue. So it's been really, really good.
Okay, so with it being a one floor home with 16 beds, are there any different speculations or specifications, I should say, within the building that makes it different from an institution or just a residential house? Like, for example, I've toured a couple, and I think might have been a more of a personal preference, but the hallways were wider, right? So you can get
Yeah.
wheelchairs in and out easier. I know you mentioned the showers having no lips, no trip hazards, etc. And I've also seen, hoods in the kitchen where they have their own fire suppression system
Yes.
there
Yeah.
in the hood, or a sink that's lower, or the things that are more accessible for seniors or anyone who's ADA, right? So anything that you have to kind of keep in mind as it relates to the build itself.
So every single county is going to be different. And that's so the first thing that you really need to do is when you find an area and you do your search looking for where are people going to be able to afford this? Because again, it is boutique senior living. This is private pay is the model. We will also take long-term care insurance, but you have to make sure that the demographic matches. So for us, like in Kenton County, they have 10.7 beds for every like 1,000 people that are 65 and older. So there's a shortage. So you just want to make sure that they can afford it, that it is a need in your area, that it's not saturated. And then the key is going to your county, like to your zoning, and you really can sit down with PDS. You can go through it yourself. It's all online. I mean, it's available, and you just need to like read it. And I would always suggest go in person if you're going to meet with them, because a lot of times when you call somebody on the phone, first of all, you're not sure who you're talking to, and you get different answers. And sometimes that's always one of the questions that we ask is, show me where that is in the code. Show me where that is in the code, because people have an idea of what they think it is, but it actually is not that. We do have the industrial hoods. We do have our fire rating for our doors, for our walls, and things like that are more than what you would find just in a residential home. One of the cool features that we're doing, though, is we are doing Dutch doors, because we want that to be, if you have the bottom door closed, it prevents other people from wandering in your room, but you're still kind of open to the rest of the house. It's not like you're shut off in a room. So,
Got it. So outside of the real estate itself, let's transition over to the business a little bit. Are there any licensing that is required to operate these facilities?
there is. So you have to go through the state, and there is a license, and you have to get a license for. We're doing the assisted living with dementia care, so we're doing the highest license that we can get, and that way people again can age in place. So there are a lot of programs in Kentucky. The one it's called K-Care, and they are amazing. They have so many resources. They work directly with the legislators. They have all of the requirements, and then when people get surveyed by the OIG, they tell them like, okay, this is what they focused on. These are the things you need to make sure that that you have that you have good. So yeah, there's a lot of really good resources in Kentucky. I found a lot of support, which has been really, really nice. One of the things I did want to touch back on the real estate side, though, is I just want to point out that people don't realize, like, it has every single benefit that any real estate deal. So you've got the appreciation, you've got the cost seg you can do, you've got the bonus depreciation. Like, it's crazy. And if you pick your area well, which like Fort Mitchell is really good, it will appreciate really well on its own. Like, we, in our deal right now, we got a pre-appraisal, and our deal is about $9 million total. The pre-appraisal came back after 1 year of stabilization at $11 million. So that's automatic equity that's in there. And then you do have the operational side, which I do feel like the operational side is obviously a little bit more risky. So it's really important to make sure that you're choosing a place that the real estate side can also hold you up if you need.
And you guys will be owning the real estate as well, correct?
Yes, but in this
Got it.
model, you can do whatever you. So you could own the real estate. You could just be an operator. You could do both, which is what we're doing. So there's different ways to get into this space.
And you mentioned that the biggest difference with residential assisted living is the caregiver to resident ratio. In the institutions, you're looking at sometimes 1 per 20, one caregiver to 20 residents. I'm sure it probably could be higher, but in the residential assisted living space, we're targeting one caregiver to 6 residents, which is considerably better. And I say that because I come from a healthcare background as well, and reading patient charts, sometimes things get combobulated with each other. So taking care of one patient is, and to know that patient really, really well is a chore. It's a task. Now, when you add on 6 or 20 or 50, it obviously gets exponentially more crazy and increasingly difficult, right? So the 1 per 6 is ideal, one caregiver, 6 residents. So how many caregivers or STNAs, if you will, are you employing around the clock for these 2 buildings?
So during the day, our ratio is 1 to 6 because we have 2 caregivers in each home and a manager in each home. And then at night, it's 1 to 8 because we have 2 caregivers in each home. So we're doing 12-hour shifts.
1 to 8. Got it. Okay. So I would imagine your biggest expense here would be employee
Yes.
wages. Yes?
Yes.
So outside of the caregivers, and this is going to be, are you doing both properties or both buildings as assisted living, or are you doing one memory care, one assisted living, or some type of hybrid?
That's a great question. I think that our plan is to do a hybrid right now. And the reason that we're doing that is because we've heard different things. In some cases, when someone comes into assisted living, like, you don't want everyone to be memory care because that's not, it doesn't feel comfortable for the adult coming in that's not having as many issues. But if you can do a mixture, what other RALA owners have found is that the assisted living people who don't have as much memory issue actually like to take care of and help the memory care. So they help, make sure they're getting their food, like, hey, they need this, or hey, they need that. And they've kind of become their buddy. And so and again, that whole purpose thing is good. So originally, we're going to have them mixed. If at some point that becomes too difficult, then we may have one home that's strictly memory care, one that's assisted living. And they're mirror images of each other. So if we had to move someone from one home to the other, it's a mirror image. Everything else is the same.
So from an operational perspective, aside from the caregivers providing assistance to the residents here, you're also providing meals. You're also providing activities.
Right.
What other amenities are you providing for these residents?
So we also have a salon. So they will come in, someone will come in and do their hair, do their nails. A lot of people don't think about that, but a lot of seniors, they cannot get down and clip their own nails. They can't see well enough, and they don't have the mobility to do that. So we'll have somebody to come in and do that. We also have physical therapy, occupational therapy, hospice. All of that can come into the home in the same way that they would come into your own home. And then I talked a little bit about that courtyard, that raised gardens. It's just, there's moments out there. There's a fire pit. It's going to be really, really nice. So yeah, so we offer the same amenities that are offered at the big box facilities. We'll have medical providers come in if their family wants them to go to their own. That's fine. They do have to provide that transportation, but we will have a provider that's available to take care of those needs too.
I have to imagine that the scope of work for a lot of these operations are pretty much through the roof. Like you have to have binders and binders of these things, right? Just for meal prepping, just for dinner time, just for placing a resident in a chair a certain way or taking them to their room, and activities and allowing visitors and the list goes on and on. So how are you managing that part of it, or is that something you are splitting with your partner?
So the way that we're managing that is that we're part of the Residential Assisted Living Academy, and so they provide a lot of those things. So what we do is we'll take that, and then with that K-Care with the state, a lot of those providers will also give you access to theirs, and so you can make sure that it's state specific because there are some that are state requirements. But yeah, and it's just making sure that you understand what's in your S&P, and that they also that you're following it, because I feel like that's where people get in trouble is when they have something that's in their paper that then the investigator comes and they're like, well, wait a minute, it says right here that this is how you do it, but you just said this is how you do it. So just making sure that everybody is very, very clear on how they're to handle different scenarios. I'm not super worried about that. I feel like for being a nurse practitioner, being in medicine, like that's what we operate with, and the better your protocols, the better your care will be. So
Right. With any development project, we all know it takes a lot of time to get, everything shovel ready. You have to deal with the jurisdiction. You have to, go through all the construction process as well. So there's a lot of headaches along the way here. But what I'm alluding to is the ramp up period, right? Once everything is good to go, you got your permits ready, you're building. Now comes a little bit more of a challenging part where you have to advertise and market for these residents. There are agencies out there like A Place for Mom, and there's a few other ones that I forget. It's been a while, but are you guys using the agencies that are available for help in filling these spaces, or are you marketing it yourself? And if so, how?
So we'll be doing both. So we have placement agents that we've already contacted. So we haven't signed the contract yet, but we will. So that'll be one way. The issue with the placement agent is that you do have to pay usually the first month rent. So it's kind of expensive to do it that way. So I have also joined Senior Focus, and there's a bunch of senior networking in this area. And so I have found people home health. Like that's a huge thing because they're the ones who are seeing the residents in their home, and they know when they're starting to get to the point that they can't be in their home anymore. It's not safe for them. So that one's a huge one. Going to the hospitals, talking to the social workers, like in the rehab hospitals, because a lot of times your insurance, people don't realize, but it's like, oh, you're done. You got to get out. You got to go find a place. And people are like, they can't come home. Like, I'm not ready for that. So we will make sure that we are best friends with all of those places also, so that they can just call us and say, hey, we've got somebody. So my goal is to, when we open, have a wait list so that way we're pretty much full as soon as we open.
No, that's incredible. You have to kind of do a lot of the groundwork up front so that you minimize the amount of time that the spaces are vacant, right? So outside of that, now with the project in and of itself, you mentioned these residents are either private pay or long-term care insurance.
Yes.
I know in the past, I knew that we didn't want to deal with insurance at all because it was going to be a nightmare.
Yeah.
Insurance in general is a nightmare. So how are you going to incorporate the long-term care insurance? I guess what issues do you kind of foresee going into place, and how do you plan on jumping past that hurdle?
So the long-term care insurance is different than medical insurance. You know that. So it's different. There are definitely hoops. It is definitely set up so that the person does not get the money. But I had to do this for my granny, and I was able to. It's a lot of hoops is all I can say. So I feel comfortable helping families do that because it's if you just get the policy, and every policy is different, every policy and what it pays. But some of these policies literally pay like $15,000 a month. Like it's crazy amounts. And you make sure that you write in your resident agreement that if they have long-term care insurance, that it pays in full. Like it pays all the way. So even if your rate is lower than that, it pays whatever the max is of their policy. So,
Gotcha. Okay. So let's get a little bit more granular with some of the numbers in this project in general. Now, your business is called Honeysuckle RAL.
Honeysuckle House, yes.
Honeysuckle House RAL. Okay. So can you, as much detail or as little detail as you want, could you walk us through this particular project when it comes to, the size of the land, the size of each individual homes? We'll start with that and then we'll kind of get
Okay.
more into the numbers there.
Yes. So the land is 1.49 acres. It's in Fort Mitchell, Kentucky. We are building two 8,100 square foot homes on it, and there's about 30 feet in between the homes, and so that's where the secured courtyard will be with a walking path and things like that. Each room is anywhere from 250 to 289 square feet, depending on if it's corner rooms or which one. We do have two of the rooms that are adjoining, so that way if we have a couple or we have two sisters or two best friends and they want to use one as a bedroom and one as a living room, they're able to do that. Let's see what else. I said private bathrooms. They're full bathrooms. We do have an ADA compliant guest bathroom. We have communal living area, so kitchen, living room, dining room, and then the salon. And then we also have a little library, like chapel area. So if people want to worship or they just want a quiet space, just because sometimes the activities are too much for some people, so they need another little place to kind of hang out.
Gotcha. And are you partnering with a developer or a contractor? And if so, one, what does that look like? And two, what's your general build cost?
Okay. So we are working with a contractor. We're working with Furlong Building. Actually, the person that owns the land is actually he owns the construction company also. So it's actually been wonderful because he's also was the mayor of Fort Mitchell and is now the Kenton County Sheriff. So he has lots of ties, which has made things, I'm sure, smoother for me than maybe it always is. I don't know. So that's been really good. So we're doing a design build. We have an architect. We have a civil engineer. We've got the construction team. To build each of the homes, it's about 5.9 million. The development cost for the land is around 850,000, and then there's also like tap fees because it had a house on it, but it had a house that had, I want to say it had like well water or something like that. So water's at the street, but we have to bring it all in. And you have to do underground detention because when you disturb over an acre of land in development, then you have to figure out a way to catch that runoff and all of that. So we could have done an above ground, but it literally would have looked like an empty pool, and that is not the aesthetic that we're going for. So we're putting ours underneath our parking lot.
When you say developmental fees, are you talking about hard costs and soft costs, or could you elaborate on that a little bit more?
So that's to get it that's to get it shovel ready. So literally, it has to be graded. It has to be it's really the grading. It's the grading, the putting in the underground detention, and then bringing all of the utilities in.
Does that include permits?
No, there's a special permit that I think is around 50,000. We're still waiting to see, but we've started the permitting process, and so far I think I've paid 6,000 or 7,000. So that's something that people need to know also. If you're going into this, because there's a lot of unknowns and so you kind of need to have a little nest egg. I would say we have probably spent, it's been over 200,000 in architects and design and all of the pre stuff, getting the zoning changed, all of that. So just be aware that there are upfront costs to a lot of this, and you have to kind of do it to be able to know whether you can move forward, because it could, there were other land that we looked at that there was no way it was going to fit. It had water issue, like there were just other issues, but we wouldn't have known that without spending some money. So
Right. So how far along are you from the day you got the land under contract up until now?
So we started in 2023 is when I first started this venture, when my granny came and lived with me. We found the land in 2024, so late 2024. So it has been It's been about a year. I would say about a year of all the zoning and the like working all those things out. Some of the delay has been me because of the money raising. Because you know once you get
Sure.
the bank and you get all that situated, then you have to start raising capital. So some of that is on
Yeah.
me.
So you mentioned that one house is $5.9 million. Does that include,
Both for both houses.
oh, for
Yes,
both
it's for
houses?
both
Okay.
houses.
So let's say, okay. So does that include, that doesn't include the developmental costs, correct?
It does. Yeah. No, no, no. All that's in
It
there.
does.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Sorry,
that's
I was
all
just
in.
trying to break out that there are other. Yes, but it does include that.
Got it. When it comes to financing, how difficult was it to talk to these lenders in terms of, getting pretty much a construction loan that converts to a permanent loan for assisted living in and of itself? I imagine that there would be a lot of education that comes out and a lot of, pro formas, spreadsheets that you have to educate these lenders on. Would that be a correct assumption?
Yes, yes. So I think if you're going to talk to lenders, you need to have a couple things. You need to have a business plan that's very clear so that they know that you've done your research, that you can show them what are the demographics, what's the need, why are we even talking about this, why is this a good area, and what's our marketing plan, what's the competition in the area, like so they know why you chose the bed rates that you chose. So you really need to make sure that your business plan is solid. The next thing is a pro forma. A 10-year pro forma is wonderful. So if you can show them that, what they want to see is that you really are able to cover that debt service. So that's what they're looking at is mainly that your expenses and your income that you're able to cover what the piece that they care about. So we actually were really lucky in this area. Heritage Bank wanted to work with us, but we ended up going with what is it? Oh my gosh, Bank 59 because in the Raleigh space they know that. So it was really easy because we didn't have to educate them as much. They were just like, yeah, show us your numbers. Okay, yeah, it's good because we've already seen this work in other places.
And were there any favorable terms that they provided you for the lending?
They did, yeah. So it's an SBA loan, and it was favorable in the sense that the first 3 years were interest only on both two of the loans, and they were going to give us an interim interest, like 360,000, to help pay while we were developing, and they were 33. One of the loans is 33 years, so that was really helpful.
That's incredible. 3 years of interest only. And they gave you money to pay the interest
Yes,
with. That's
yes,
that's
I
amazing.
know it is. It is
So
it's kind of amazing. But with the downside of them is that you do have to come up with about 20, anywhere from 18 to 20% of a down payment.
sure.
So they are better than I think some construction loans and some things like that you can get. But and they give you working capital, which a lot of lenders will not do. And with this, you have to have the working capital because that first year you're developing, that second year you're filling, you're not making money usually until sometime after the second year. So
Got it. So after the 3 years of interest only, it rolls into an amortized loan, P&I, etc.
right.
Yes.
Yes.
Got
Yeah.
it.
So they do
Well,
like these
30-year.
debenture loans. They do these little bridge loans is kind of what they are. But yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So you're a year in, roughly. When do you expect to be uh, completely finished with the build process? And I'm guessing you're kind of already starting the fill up or the pre-leasing period currently. Yes.
Yes. So we have our goal is to break ground in May. And then what we've been told is it's going to take 2 months to get the land, to get it shovel ready. And then it's 10 months to build both buildings with a week delay in between the two. There are some owners that would do one and then the other. The reason that we did it this way is just because of our land, the way it was. Nobody's going to want to look across and see a construction site and live in a nice, beautiful home and not be able to go outside. So it made more sense for us to do them simultaneously, but that's something that you do have to look at.
Sure. Okay. And you mentioned one of the issues that you were facing currently was the capital raise. And I know you mentioned it was a 506B. And just for anyone listening, we're not soliciting investors here. It's just a conversation between Crystal and I, kind of learning more about how she structures and whatnot. So, Crystal, as comfortable as you are with sharing whatever, I'm curious how you're structuring your raise.
Okay. So the way that we structured our raise is that it's for friends and family. So it's people that we know. And once we know them and we understand some of their financial goals, then we're able to kind of talk to them about the deal and what we're offering. But what we did was we offered a pref. So for the first for the first 2 years, again, we're not profitable. So what we did was a cumulative pref. And so what that means is that that inclusive pref, it adds up. So then in the third year, when we do start making profit, we're able to pay the investors back. So that kind of guarantees them a 10% return in those first 2 years. And then after that, our goal was at 5 years to refinance. And then once we would refinance, obviously give the investors as much of their initial capital back as we could. And then we were leaving them in the deal. So they were it was an evergreen deal. So it wasn't something that they would have to be kicked out of, which a lot of operators do. But for us, it's a long-term hold, so we wanted it to be kind of a long-term hold with passive income for people.
And for between you as the operator sponsored GP and the passive LP investors, how are you structuring that split?
So that it changes. So in the first 5 years, we had it that the LPs get 70% and we get 30%. But then once that capital is returned, it flip-flops and they get 30%, we get 70%.
I love that. Love that. Because and when they're invested into the project itself, that means they have an interest in the real estate plus the business.
Exactly.
And that's why once you return their capital, now you own more of the business, everything altogether versus them owning a little bit less.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Got it.
Yes.
Okay. So the 506B offering, with friends and family, sorry for anybody that's accredited out there who is trying to invest in assisted living. Crystal's not accepting you at this moment.
Yes.
You're planning on holding this for the long term, and you mentioned a cash out refinance in 5 years, right? Okay, so what if one of your investors want to get out? They want to, 5 years is enough for me. I want to get out. What happens then?
They could. I would be a little curious as to why they would want to get out because they don't have any money in the deal and they're just getting a paycheck each month or each quarter in the in the mail. But if they wanted to, let's say that it happened before the 5 years, then we have clauses in our operating agreement that it first comes to us as the owners, and whether or not we want to buy that share, then it goes to the other investors. If they are not able to, the other investors don't want it, then we would ask them to find a replacement for their share.
So you essentially get first dibs in order to buy them out for whatever percentage that they own.
Exactly.
And if not, they would have to find somebody to buy them out altogether.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Okay. Any other nuances in your structure that's like kind of new and different or creative?
I think those are I feel like that structure was like very creative. Like I was very happy with it because for me, I was like, if people are willing to come in and invest with us, I want to take care of them. I want them to know that we're taking care of them before we're taking care of ourselves. So I loved the inclusive, and then cumulative pref and the 70-30 and then it switching, and then giving again as much money as we would be able to back because obviously this is something that's scalable. We're in Fort Mitchell right now. I would love to look at Fort Thomas. We're the only ones going to be in Northern Kentucky. So it's definitely a need in this area. So I would love to, give you your money back so you could come back to me and be like, hey, now I want to be in this one. So.
Right,
So, yeah.
right. Outside of the pitfalls that you've already seen with, the year that you've already been in, any other, I guess, pitfalls that you anticipate seeing in the near future?
The only thing I am a little bit concerned with is that in Kentucky, the plumbing. I know the plumbing is like apparently its own thing. So I'm really hoping that we don't have any hiccups with that. We do have to have like a grease catcher. Like it's kind of almost like a commercial kitchen, which is a little bit crazy because we're residential, but that's okay. So that's something that I think would be interesting. And then just being careful with the way, like our salon, we're actually not going to call it a salon. It'll be called like a flex space, and someone can come in that has their own license, because otherwise if you're calling it a salon, like you have to get a license. So you just have to be careful, like the way that you word things and call things, and you don't know that until you start kind of digging. And then that's why it's important to have people around you that have done this. So
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. How many of these projects are you looking to do? Like, let's say we're 5 years in the
yeah,
future. The first one is already up and running. It's filled. There's a waiting
yeah.
list. Are you looking at acquiring additional land to do more of these
We
projects?
are, yes, yes. So I think that we definitely have identified two more areas in northern Kentucky. Cincinnati is kind of, I'm not going to say saturated, but there are residential assisted livings there, which is why we haven't gone up. But we might look at going more south, like Walton, like Florence has got a lot of the big box facilities. But yeah, definitely something. I have three children. My business partner has two, so I feel like if we could do five, like groups of two or three, that would be perfect because then we can we're going to live there, and know that we get good care, but also that we can leave that for our children.
And how are you employing your caregivers, your STNAs, et cetera? Are you, hopefully you're not poaching them from somewhere else, but yeah, what's the process like for hiring qualified and caring and just well-rounded people?
So I think there's a couple different ways. So what's fascinating to me is we're not even open yet. Like we do have a website, but I've had people call me already, like caregivers and managers, and they're not happy in their current position, and so we definitely we will be probably poaching. And not on purpose, but just because we have a better environment. We're providing a better work environment than what they have. But I think the key is it's not all about the experience of the person, it's the person. It's just like what you said, because what you can train how to help with ambulation and all of those things. You cannot train caring. And so I think that for us will be a big thing that we're looking for. So there are some, it's not agencies, it's called doyoucare.com, but they help fill in for you. And you can actually hire, it's nice because it's kind of a trial. They can come and see how do they fit in with the people that are there. You can kind of see what's their work ethic like. So that's something that we definitely will use. And then a couple of the home health agencies in this area have offered to, if we're short, if we need people to come, that they would actually come and help cover our shifts. So that would be something that if for that home health person, if they wanted to pick up some extra shifts, then they could kind of do both. So.
That's incredible. Now, I do want to touch on one thing that we talked about prior to us starting was you mentioned REITs, and REITs had some interest here. So could you touch on that a little bit, elaborate a little bit more? So I'm sure I will get a lot of value out of this as well as the audience.
So what I'm finding is that when you have a deal, and people told me this. They said if you have the deal, the money will come. And I had a hard time believing that. Like it was like, what? What do you mean? I don't understand. Don't I have to go out and I have to do all this? And not to say that I haven't been networking. I've been doing all the things. I've been talking about what we're doing. But it just so happens that at it was actually Slocum Reed's at the best ever meetup. I had run into somebody there, and he reached out and was like, "Hey, I'm in real estate, obviously, like we all are, and I'm curious if you would talk to me about funding your deal, like funding sources." And I was like, sure, like that's great. Okay. It turns out that he works with REITs and that they are interested in funding our entire deal, which is amazing. And so that's why the syndication is we're trying to figure out what we're doing here, because we were getting ready to go to the 506C so that we could start advertising to accredited investors. We've kind of put that on hold to now see how this goes. But during that process, we also were a broker reached out to us and was like, hey, I've got private money, family offices, things like that. People are wanting to do residential assisted living because of the social aspect, and they would love for their money to go there. Can you send me your information? I have. They also are interested in working with us. So it's just fascinating how many people out there that it's like it's hidden in plain sight. And if you don't know that that's an option, you just think, oh, it's the loan. I have to go to the bank. You're missing all of these other opportunities.
Yeah, so networking is a big piece, which makes me kind of upset that I've put this thing on hold for so long and I haven't touched it in so long. But that's incredible. I mean, as a conversation that you are having with these REITs and brokers and whatnot unfold, I bet you they can probably fund your entire dream of having, 5 projects or
And that's
what have
exactly
you,
what they
right?
want. Like that's what they want ask that question because they want to know A, do you want to hold, and then B, are you wanting to scale? Because that's exactly what they want to do. They want to have an operator that they can continually fund that they know has a good track record.
And would that change how you kind of structure everything now, since you have a few investors already, right, for the project, as well as an SBA loan in place? What would that look like if they came into the picture and took over the first one? Maybe they pay off the bank,
So
and I know if
we
you were starting from scratch again,
Yeah, we have
it'd be
not
easier.
signed for the bank. Like it's a pre-commitment, it's all of that. And the same with the investors. Like I've taken soft commits. I haven't taken anyone's money because I wasn't sure what was going on and I didn't want to take people's money and then turn around and give their money back. So I have told all of the investors they're all aware of what's going on because I didn't want to leave them hanging. So it's they're incredible people, and most of them are like, okay, well, I'm going to put it in something liquid so that way, if it doesn't work out, like yeah, I can still go with you. And I'm like, that's awesome. Um, but yeah, it's completely funding the whole thing. So yeah, wouldn't need the SBA. Wouldn't need the investors at that point. But I know people who are doing residential assisted living that are raising money. So I've told them like if it doesn't work out with me and if it's really something that you want to pursue, I can connect you with those people.
Would you still keep the kind of the same structure that you had previously, where it was 30/70 and then split 70/30?
Okay, so that's a great question. So right now the terms are it's 8.75% loan, and there are going to be some points in there for the people who have kind of made it happen. So I think 5 points is what we're looking at. And as far as they want potentially rev share, not equity share, which is fine with me. And they are not looking at, I think they're talking 10 to 15%. So we have not negotiated that piece yet. So we'll see how that shakes out. But
So that will look very interesting. I mean,
mhm,
I would like to keep more of the equity
yeah,
piece, but if they want the revenue piece, by all means.
right, exactly.
Well, Crystal, that's all the questions that I had for you today. Before you leave us, how do people get in touch with you? How do they learn more about what you're doing? If you have any social media handles, please give us that, and then I'll put those in the show notes as
Okay,
well.
I will. Yeah, I'm on social media. It's Crystal Wilmhoff. It's Honeysuckle House. RAL is all over. That's you can find that on social media. And then we have a website. My phone number is 513-262-6180. So if people want to call or they want to email at info@honeysucklehouseral.com, I'm happy to answer any questions that they have.
Awesome, Crystal. Thank you so much for your time
Thank
today.
you. Have a good one.